So when you were first doing that as project manager, you were doing all that work on the behalf of your client strictly for the commission as a real estate agent
Correct.
only?
Yeah. Yes. At that time, I wasn't even getting paid. At the beginning, I wasn't even getting paid for project managing.
Hello and welcome to Motion Matters. This is the entrepreneurial podcast where we talk about the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship. And today, I'm very excited to have Amelia Noah and Rosa Aponte. We had met previously. We both work in the Fayetteville market with different real estate aspects. And then one thing led to another, started talking about different deals. And so more recently reached out and said, hey, you guys should totally be on the show. It would be awesome for you guys to talk about your story. So with that, welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you for having us.
Yay. So this is my first time interviewing two people at one time, so this will be super exciting.
Okay.
But if you guys don't mind taking, 3 to 5 minutes or well, and kind of talking about, you guys got a unique thing, like what was your past? What was your background? How did you get into entrepreneurship? And then you guys have now collaborated on a lot of stuff. And how did that happen? So whichever one of you would like to go first.
Okay. Rosa, you want to go first or?
Okay. So you're asking like, how did we meet?
Well, go back a little bit further. Okay. Like, what did you do before you got into the entrepreneur world, and like what inspired you to come here, and like how did you make that transition? We'll dig deeper into it, but just give me like the broad brushstroke view of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hi, I'm Rosa Aponte, and I got into real estate accidentally. When I first moved here to North Carolina, I was working for a chiropractor. And then from there, I actually got a job because I was a W-2 employee. So I started working for an eye doctor. No, I was working for a chiropractor, and then the chiropractor wasn't paying me enough. So I started looking for another job, and then got hired by an eye doctor who would pay me more because I spoke Spanish. So when I was doing that, I was going to a church where the pastor's wife had gotten her real estate license and had never used it. And she decided to get into real estate, like back into real estate. And she was like, hey, how about if you come join me as an assistant and I can train you, in real estate. So that's how I got into real estate. It wasn't something that I had thought about. It was like, hey, let me try it out. I can be her assistant because I've always worked, for somebody else. So that's how I got into real estate. And then from there on, like once I learned, like, the buyers and sellers, I realized that my market was more like, it was like more on the stress property, because like I saw that everybody was like basically targeting the same thing, like new construction or like, houses that are like in perfect condition. And to me, I was like, that's kind of boring. And I always wanted something different. So I would go and look at the stress properties for fun, not even showing clients. It was like, let me look to see what's out there. And I would see the prices and I'm like, man, this is so appealing. I could do this. I could do it. So I always had that passion when it came to like flipping. So that's basically how I got into like the real estate side. I'll let Amelia like describe how she got into it.
So I'll start with motivation. So for me, motivation is key, and it stemmed from always having a wealth of independence as a child. I've always had a desire to be independent, and I've also been very curious. I was raised by my grandmother, and she basically just let me do what I wanted to do as a child, and I got accustomed to that freedom. So I did go to college, and immediately after college, I started looking for a pay rate in my field, which was computers, versus what it would take for me to be able to sustain a single mother income and not have to depend on the governmental system. So when I started looking at salary versus what I was going to make, if I would become an independent, contractor, which is what I did when I got into real estate, or entrepreneur, I said, hey, I really need to do something that's not going to leave me in poverty. So I started investigating that. I found real estate, but I was still on the fence. So I was actually interested in real estate or esthetician. And I had looked into both of them as a up-and-coming business owner or wannabe business owner. And then I actually ended up flipping a coin.
Wow.
So tails was real estate, heads was esthetician. And so I flipped the coin. It went to tails. At that point in time, I got my real estate license and I started from the trenches. I started as a buyer's agent and listing agent back in 2004. And I did that for some time. And, that's kind of like my history of where I was and what gave me the idea to become an entrepreneur.
So I definitely want to get into the investing side later, but I want to pause that for now. And then I'll ask you first is that I guess one of the defining things that I would like to be interested in knowing is, so do you feel like from the time that you said you went to college, so do you feel like from the time that you were in college that you already knew based on all the other stuff you told us that you definitely didn't want to work for somebody else? Or did you work for somebody else and then get to the point where you were just like, I can't do this?
So surprisingly enough, I went straight from being out of college. And during college, I did work. I was a barista and a personal trainer.
Okay.
So that was my regular W-2-ish type of jobs.
Okay.
And that was during college. But right after college, I had a come to Jesus moment. As a single mom, sitting in front of a computer for 10 hours a day, working on code, because I did coding and in college, and just having a realization like, I have a daughter. I'm a single mom. I need to do something that gives me more flexibility.
Yes.
And it went back to my core, which is I love to do what I want to do when I want to do it. As a child, playing in the woods, being curious about everything. So that it really resonated with my core. At that point in time, I said, I know I can do it. If I can overcome some of the other circumstances that I've overcame in life, maybe we'll touch on them. Maybe I don't know where this interview is going, but if we do, I'll happily divulge that. And then to me, I was like, I can do this. And and I did. It took a while and it was gut wrenching at first, but I was able to build it from the ground up and learn everything.
Kind of, dovetailing off of the bookmark with Emilia is that, was there a specific thing that you really had to overcome for yourself to make that leap of faith, to leave that W-2 job in order to be able to enter into the
I would say it was actually not that hard for me to go from being an employee to like working. Well, at that time I wasn't working on my own because I was an assistant. So I knew I was going to have income coming in, even if I didn't do a sale. Somebody else was, I had a paycheck coming in, and also I was married at that time. So my husband had a full-time job. Okay. So I knew that my money will be, not my money, but the extra money will be, I will be okay. Yeah. It wasn't like I was, like Amelia's situation where she basically had to take care of like her whole family. So at that time I was fine, but I did end up getting a divorce. And by then I was already fully into like real estate for like, 3 or 4 years. So I already had built a little bit of my business at that time. Okay.
So you had some stability. So it was a little less pressure financially for you from that. Okay. We'll shift back to you now. So I'm sure being a single parent at that time for you, there's definitely a lot of thought process in being able to provide at least at a foundational level. And so to the point or extent that you would be comfortable with, I mean, do you want to talk like what was one of the most critical things that you kind of had to overcome or process on how you were going to move forward?
As in that point of my life, like before real estate investing and everything, I think one of the major things that I had to overcome was time management. Because at that point in time, and still, it took a while for me to really nail down time management. Because as a single mom, you have guilt if you're not with your child. You have guilt if you can't provide for your child. So the time management was just the most challenging aspect, because I think, I'm like, if I work, if I do this, then okay, good. I'll get a, good check. Everything's made. But if I, have to take her to daycare, she spends extra long time at daycare, where do I go? Then when I'm with her, instead of being a parent, I'm more like being I'll do anything you want because I love you so much, because this is my guilt. Yes. Now you get the best beach trips ever. And I actually had to catch myself doing that as a parent. Yeah. Because I noticed I would try to make up my flaws as a parent with other things versus teaching, mentoring, and really being there for as a parent. Luckily, I did find that flaw in my behavior as a mother early on, so I could catch it and try to course correct. But I did notice I was doing that. So I think time management and nailing down good routines and a schedule. I mean, because you got to run across town, do this. I mean, being a parent in its own requires, it's like you have to be a business owner, like to run a successful house. You can run a house, you can run a mediocre home, or you can run a real good home that with systems and processes and like military children. Like I got to the point where I was like, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And this is when you're going to do it. I don't want to hear it, but there needs to be a little bit of compassion. And I think I had to do a little bit of research in me to bring that compassion out because I was used to living in survival mode at first. And then when I was able to get out of the survival mode, then I was able to kind of like let loose a little bit and become more of a mother. And that was a huge transition. And I loved the fact that I was aware during that process of my life and my own self and how my children were developing. So I think that was my biggest challenge was time management and just the guilt of, what the sacrifice is up front. And it's not my saying, but there is a saying. It's, I think it's like you could choose the hard way to an easy life or the easy way to a hard life.
Yep.
So in a sense, I think I chose the hard way to an easy life. Not that life is easy, but I feel like a lot of my bigger challenges, just baseline life challenges, I have overcame them. So now a lot of times facing challenges now, it's like, okay, let's figure this out together, especially when you have a good business partner, team members, that you can kind of bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes the ride a little smoother.
Yeah. I actually, well, you touched on two good points. One, I'll just briefly mention that the one I know when I went through my divorce as a single guy, still with 3 kids and still active duty, I did what you said a lot. And that was like, I just felt guilty. And so therefore lavish opportunities to go do stuff. I mean, because you genuinely want to make them happy and have great experiences, but then, also probably guilt and feeling. So I definitely stepped into that. So I think that's good that you brought that up. And there was one thing, the other thing that you said that I thought was good and I want to mention, but of course I forgot it. What I didn't forget is that, so can we transition into kind of how you guys kind of became connected? And do you want to start that story?
Okay. So we actually joined the same firm. It was a friend of mine's firm, and I was actually helping him build it. And this is firm as in real estate firm.
Okay.
And so I was helping him at the beginning phases, come up with, some systems and processes and, some other investment things. So he was building a firm. And at that point in time, we both joined his firm. She was with another firm. I was with another firm, and we met initially there. However, up in a conversation, Rosa did mention, she said, I seen you on social media. And I was like, I have a good feeling about you. Like she said to me, and it really tickled me because she said, when I seen you, I just felt like a good energy or something. You said something.
Yeah,
to
I
that
felt like we
point.
connected.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes people,
Through the
show up?
internet. And we
I
didn't
seen
even
her.
know each other at that point in time.
I would see her very often, and I'm like, this girl, there's something about her. Like, I have to meet her.
Yeah.
You know how some people you just want to meet for just to meet.
Yeah.
So I would see her constantly, like people you may know, and I'm like, man, there's something about her that I have to meet. And we've never seen each other. We have like realtor events, and I'd never seen her in any of them. So I'm like, one day we're gonna meet. And then when I joined that small firm, she was there too. And I was like, oh my God, look who's here. Like, the girl that I've always wanted to meet because her energy, something about her energy, like, and when we talked, we connected immediately. I was like, I knew there was something about her.
Yeah. I always thought that. I found that very fascinating. And I think throughout that process, like we worked together in a real estate capacity, like transactions. And we did a couple transactions together as well. And we worked together in that capacity for maybe a year plus. And then we noticed that, both of us were reliable, good at communicating. We followed through with, whatever it was that we said that we would do. And there was just like a little vetting process. I think it was like a silent vetting process that we were subconsciously doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I
So
think
true.
that, yeah. And then I think that, you know, there was a decision that, you know, we were leaving that firm. And then that's when we started to, you know, have other conversations. And when we really kind of made something official, we were actually paddleboarding together.
Yes.
So we were out paddleboarding and we were just like, you know what? We should do this.
Because we had the same goals. Like whenever
Yeah.
I would talk to her and I would say, man, I want to do this and this. And she was like, yeah, I thought about that. And like, it would just connect. Like our
Yeah.
like our thoughts would connect. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I feel like we know each other forever. And like, we need to be working together because I think we're going to do big things. So every time I will bring something up and I'm like, you know what I would like to do? I would like to flip like 10 houses and then like have enough funds that we can actually like give a house out to somebody. She's like, oh my God, I thought about that. I was like, we got to work for that. So there was so many different things that we've always talked about that we want to do and we've done. So like, I don't know, it was just perfect.
Yeah, it felt like a perfect match almost.
That's awesome.
It's like, I feel like I'm dating you in a way. You know?
Okay.
That's good.
But it's a good date.
Yeah,
you know?
it is a
Yeah.
good thing.
Well, it's also good when you feel that kind of connection right away because it just makes everything so
Yeah.
much, it's effortless, right?
Yeah.
And natural. So can we talk a little bit about what was your first collaboration? Like obviously you guys worked in the same firm. I got that. But I also, now we're kind of meandering into investing. Like, I guess it's a two-part question. Were either of you independently already beginning your investment journey? And the second part is, at what point did you guys come together as investors, like doing a deal together?
Okay.
So I remember talking to her about real estate and investing, and she has been doing it we've been in the business about the same time, but she was investing way before I was. But I was doing it as a project manager for some of my clients because when I left the company that I was working for as an assistant, that I became my own basically a realtor by myself. I got into like the REO side of real estate.
Okay.
So I started working with banks and listing some of their properties. And I had a lot of investors come to me to buy my properties. So at that point, a lot of them weren't here. So they will say, hey, will you project manage for me? And then, you know, you will get a percentage out of that. And then you can list the property as well. So I was like, oh, yeah, because this is what I've always wanted to do. I love like, you know, the flip side of real estate. So I started doing project managing for them. And I'm like, man, these people are making a lot of money. And like, I'm only getting a commission. So I'm like, why am I not doing that? So I started like looking into it. And then in 2019, that's when I actually started doing like my own. And then I know Amelia was doing a few, and we would talk about it. And I'm like, you know, we would look at some of like her stuff, and we would kind of have like the same ideas. Hey, I will take this wall down, maybe extend the bathroom. And that's when we were like, yeah, we kind of have the same vision. And then she was the one that actually came to me, and she was like, let's do this. And I was like, oh my God, like we're gonna do it together. And once we started, like, it's funny that she brought up the fact of the coin, like she couldn't decide, because when I came to her, I didn't even know that story. And I said to her, if we can't make a decision on something we want, we're just going to flip a coin. And whoever gets it, that's it. Like, we're not going to fight about it. And that's basically how we've done the whole time our business.
Yeah. So the first, to your question, the first, I guess, collaboration that we did was a single family property. It was close to here. It was off of Bingham.
Correct.
So I think I would like to say that I'm good at everything, but I think the results show what you really are kind of good at. So I think I'm good at like finding properties and bringing them to the business and then coming up with design ideas and things that we both collaborate on design ideas. But I'm good at, you know, finding the properties. So I found one and I said, hey, we're doing this. And she was, huh? I was like, hey, we're doing this. And then she was like, whoa, what about the money?
I'm like, what about the numbers? Tell me the numbers.
And I was like, don't worry about that. We'll find it, you know. And then she found it. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. You know, so that's kind of like how we've done business to a sense. But and that we've kind of naturally developed our own roles and figured out what we were individually good at. But that was our first collaboration. And for that one, I was able to get the financing. Rosa brought in the gap, the private money.
Okay.
And then we both did the design rehab, and then we listed and sold it and got our money.
That's awesome.
And then and
so roughly how long ago was that?
No, this was about 2 years, 3 years.
Yes.
2 or 3 years ago.
2021.
Yeah.
2021.
2021-ish, yeah.
So, so since that time, have you guys done a deal either independently or to collectively that has really just been a pain in your, you know what, where it's really caused you to kind of question, is it worth it? And I'm asking that question because I know that we have had that. And sometimes when it gets really bad, you're just like, is it worth it? And so I'm just wondering, if you could talk a little bit about that? What was it that was so catastrophic or difficult?
I'll let Rosa answer that question.
Well, I cannot say it was like when I was doing project managing for one of my clients, it was horrible. I had gotten the deal for him. He was in New York and I got the deal for him. And then he said, I need you to interview a couple contractors and then like bring me the estimates and I'll call them and I'll interview them myself. And then we'll go from there. So I had brought like 3 different contractors. He interviewed all 3 and then he decided with one. But that one, I didn't feel comfortable because I was going to be working with him. And I was like, hey, how about we go with this other guy that I know him because he's done a lot of construction for other realtors in town. So he's like, I'm going to go with your choice because you're going to be there. So he went with my choice. And it was like the worst thing we could have done because the guy ended up taking a deposit of $20,000 and he disappeared. And like for 2 weeks, I could not get him on the phone, like nothing. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And then he was like, well, you know, we need to fix this and we need to find out what's going on. And then I found out that that contractor had found out that he had cancer and he had went to get treatment. And like, I guess his crew wasn't doing what they needed to be doing. So he ended up sending the crew, but it was supposed to be like a 6-week job and it took like 6 months. And by the time that I got it on the market was not doing well. So it took a little bit, it took almost a year to complete that whole project. And not only that, I had put some money into it, not even being part of it, because a lot of times he was like, well, I'll send you the money and just handle it. So I will handle it. And I put money into it and never got any of my money back. So that was, to me, I was like, I will never do this with anybody that, like, if I don't have a contract or anything like that, I'm never investing into anybody's project. Because I thought, you know, at the end, I was going to sell it and then I was going to get my money back for whatever I invested and I was going to get a commission. I didn't even get a commission. I paid for utility bills. I paid for some of the contractors. I paid for materials, for staging, for photos. Like, I got nothing.
This was before?
This is way before I got into like flipping with Amelia. Yeah, this is like one of my projects that I did with another investor.
Wow.
So then after that, that's when I was like, oh, I don't think I ever want to do this with anybody because I mean, if this is the way the game is, like I will never want to do that with anybody. So I just kept selling real estate with buyers and sellers and my, you know, my investors.
Something just clicked for me when you were talking. I just want to clarify for anybody listening. So when you were first doing that as project manager, you were doing all that work on the behalf of your client strictly for the commission as a real estate agent
Correct.
only?
Yeah. Yes. At that time, I wasn't even getting paid. At the beginning, I wasn't even getting paid for project managing. He lived in New York. I was here like getting the material, going, you know, picking out the state. Like I was doing everything just basically to get that property flipped.
Yeah, I'm not hating because honestly, when I tell people my story, I did 100% of the work because I brought zero money to the thing. So you do what you need to do to get in the game.
Right.
That's my story, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not definitely looking down on that and like, oh man, I can't believe you let it. But it's a great testament and a great story to anybody listening that you got to do what you got to do to get in the game.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing I try to tell people is like, if you don't have money, then you better figure out what piece of this puzzle that you're bringing to the table, because nobody's just going to let you do it for nothing and then give you a piece of
Exactly.
it. But I'm also outlining the fact that there are people that make a fairly nice chunk of money doing what you were doing, in addition to the fact that you were representing him as an agent.
Absolutely.
Like,
and at that
holy
time,
cow.
I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it like, can I do this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's his money, but can I do it? Because basically I'm in charge here.
Yeah,
like I have to make sure these contractors are completing this, you know, everything that needs to be done in order for me to sell this property.
Yeah.
So when I completed the whole project, I was like, wow, like I actually did that, you know, like even though it took longer than expected, I was able to do it. And then after that, like that always stayed in the back of my mind. Even though I was still working buyers and sellers, I always thought one day I'm going to do this for myself. One day. And it was years later, but I did it.
Yeah. So. No, that's awesome. I think that's awesome because again, the other thing that we all talk about as entrepreneurs that I know you guys can resonate with is the cost of tuition.
Yes.
Right. And so I tell people, okay, I lost $10,000 on a rock wall that didn't need to be built. I'm not going to do that again.
Exactly.
And now I know. And I learned a whole bunch of crap about land erosion that I had no idea that I needed to know, nor ever thought I would know. Well, that's a great one. So for you, do you have a similar type of experience either by yourself or collectively?
So I think I can point to one of our properties.
Okay.
And so it was an interesting project. We did get it finished. We did profit. We did everything smooth. It's done. It's closed. However, there were some delays, and it was just delays with the contractors. So bringing in different contractors, not meeting deadlines, not finishing on time. Kind of put us in a situation with the seller because we were on the hook to make, carrying costs and for extensive amount of time. And we had negotiated some other special terms. So it kind of increased, our expenses and decreased our bottom line. So I didn't like that much. But, I think at the end of the day, we were able to get through it, but we couldn't do it ourselves. We had to bring in other people and not on the financial side, on the construction side in order to finish the project because just all the different things that we had to do with the property. And then the key contractors kind of not doing what they needed to do and kind of making things worse at the front end left us with a big mess to clean up on the back end.
Yeah.
And getting through that project is a little irritating and took a lot more time and a lot more money. So we bled out a little bit on that one. But I think it was a wake up call. Like, hey, there's some learning lessons that we definitely learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was on a single family. And that was a perceivingly easy property. So we're like, this is going to be a breeze. And then, wasn't.
Yeah. We've ran into that problem multiple times. And I think if I'm picking up what you're laying down, I think the crux of the matter is, we have to rely so heavily on the contractors, and finding good quality contractors is extremely difficult. As we know that the really good ones out there typically are task saturated and they've already got people within their sphere, and it's almost next to impossible to get in with them. So it's like, okay, well then who do I go with? And if you go with the top guy, for big money, it's probably unlikely that you're going to be able to have the margins that you need, so you got to find so anyway, finding that is really, really challenging.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part about that, it was a one of my family members. So
wait, which person was your
person that we hired to do the construction? Yes. So it's really hard to let people go. So it's like everything that could go wrong went wrong. Like he got sick, his wife got sick, the car broke down, his dog got sick. They robbed him. They robbed all his tools. Like everything that can happen, one thing after the other just kept happening, and we're like, oh my God, we're not. It was supposed to be 6 weeks. Turned out to be like 3 months, I think it was. It was
like 6 months.
Yeah, by the time we sold it and everything. And an issue was that it was a sub 2. And we did it with a wholesaler. So the wholesaler is like, I want my money. And we're like, we thought it was going to be 6 weeks, but here it is like a month, 2, 3. And it's like, it's coming, let's just finish what we need to do. And whenever we started doing the work, the kitchen floor, we didn't know it was rotted. So whenever they took out the cabinets to do some repairs, they were like, we have to replace the whole floor. So when they ripped the floors, I think it was the joist.
It was the subfloor, the rim board, the joist.
Yeah.
Basically all of the whole underneath the house.
And it was like, oh my God, more delays. So it was like one thing after the other. It was like, we don't ever want to go through this again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We know that very much. Unfortunately / fortunately, and I say it like that because the crappy thing is every single project that we've ever done, we've never done a cosmetic flip. Like there's been no property that we've ever done where we walked in and just put in cabinets and paint the walls.
Yes.
Every single one has unfortunately had to be either a down to the stud gut or darn close to it.
Oh my God.
Because of the same thing. You start opening up a couple things and then you just find problem after problem. And then you have to make that choice. Are you going to fix it or are you going to try to patchwork it? And for us, since we started, I said the one thing I refuse to do is I'm not handing somebody a turd. Like I can't do it. And
that's the way we look at it too.
That's one of the big things that I'm big on. As for Rosa is like, I'm like, hey, I don't care, replace it. Yeah. If our margin decreases, next time we need to do better due diligence. And I just kind of like bite that bullet if it needs to be bit, because like I think I'm huge. Like for me, loyalty, integrity, and the accountability. And those are the big things because I'm accountable at the end of the day for anything that goes on in the property or any of the properties.
Yeah.
And then going back to the drawing board, I'm always trying to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
Always be training, ABT. That's what I always say, ABT, always be training.
That's good.
Rosa calls it boot camp. Going back to boot camp.
Yeah.
ABT.
Yeah.
So
No, I like that. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. That's really good. So kind of summary, like where are you guys at as far as your business goes? Meaning like, because you guys also have some that you buy and hold, correct? It's not just flipping.
Yes.
that's our new pivot.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about what that looks like.
Okay. You want me to touch on it? Okay. So that's our new pivot. So collectively, we've done over 100 projects from start to finish. And so now we decided that we want to really focus on growing our net worth versus just constantly spitting them out and, you know, taking the tax hit and things like that. So we are looking to acquire small multifamilies, something like what you guys are, subject matter experts at. But we do have some duplexes that we're in the middle of a full remodel right now, and we're going to hold them for Airbnbs. We also are doing a residential to commercial property. So we purchased it as residential, and we're going through all the steps in order to turn it into commercial. And we're going to stay there just for a short amount of time, cash out refi, and then depending on what the market says to us, then we're going to either list it or, maybe off it to another investor.
Can I interrupt? No, because you probably saw my facial expression. I'm interested because commercial for many people is going the opposite direction. And so I'm interested in hearing for this specific property, how did you kind of assess that going from residential to commercial would be a better play? I'm really interested.
Yeah. So upon the acquisition of the property, we started to investigate like the adjacent properties. And so we knew, hey, the adjacent properties are already commercial. This is kind of like a diamond in the rough. And so at that point in time, we went down to do some more investigations on the probability of it getting rezoned. So we got all the boxes checked. And at that point in time, we were like, hey, let's go ahead and do it. And now we're in the construction phases. The first part of construction, which we're doing all interior first, but we're doing it to construction spec. So that therefore, when we do go to do the zone change, we're already going to meet a lot of the specifications because there's going to be a lot other things that they're going to want us to do that we're going to be prepared to do on the back end. So that's kind of like how we're doing that. And it actually was an MLS deal that Rosa found.
It was a juicy one too.
And
Nice.
we were able to get it under contract. And just to give you a little bit of detail about the deal, we actually got it under contract. We used private money to purchase it. We're doing private money to rehab it. And so it's basically private money. And we're doing all the commercial renovations. Will take care of those things out of pocket. So
Do you mind digging into more of the terms of that? Just for like anybody listening and understanding. So, I mean, typically we talk in broad brush strokes and people talk about, hey, I purchased it for this much. I put this much in. My ARV was this. My LTV was this. Can you talk a little bit about like, how did you guys map that out?
the terms.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on this particular property, I was just browsing through the MLS, and apparently the way that they listed the property, even though it was residential, they put it on the commercial. So that's why nobody was able to see that property. It had been on the market for a while, and I pulled it up and I'm like, this is weird because I know where this is and why is this property still sitting here? So I look at the history, no offers. So I said to Amelia, I'm going to make an offer on this property. I was like, we don't have the funding right now, but we'll figure it out. I was like, I'm going to make an offer and see, because it was listed at like 180. And I went and I made an offer at like 125. And I said, if they come at like 150, we're good.
Yep.
So when I submitted the offer, Amelia had went on vacation.
I was in Brazil.
Yeah, she had left. And I submit the offer, and then the agent comes back and signs the offer and says, we're on the contract. I was like, oh my God, they accepted 125. I said, I messaged her. I was like, you won't believe this. Like, they came back and accepted the offer. They didn't even counter. We didn't even put, I think we put like $2,000 of like earnest money. It wasn't even due diligence money. So he accepted the offer the way it was. So then we started doing the due diligence. The property's it's on Rafe Road. It's on a main road. So I was like, everything around it is commercial. So I started like checking out some of the properties around there. Some of those lots are selling for like $2 million.
Yeah.
So our comps right now are at minimal comp that we were able to find is 750. So we were like, okay, it looks good. And then 5 lots down, the price point for that lot is $5 million. It's a buy a car lot.
Yeah.
So it's almost give or take same size.
Yes.
Or was it 2 million? And the other one was 5.
It's 2 million, yeah.
It was 2 million, and the one across the street was 5 million.
Well, that makes a lot more sense for people that are listening to this that aren't local from Fayetteville. Rayford Road is one of the main thoroughfares all the way through the city, and many pieces of it still have old residential houses that now have either been converted into businesses or whatnot. So just to throw that out there. Well, that sounds like an awesome find. So you guys are in the middle of that one right now?
Yeah, we're in the middle of the reno.
And so just to circle back to, so the plan is you're renovating it, then you're gonna run it and then refi?
We're going to keep it as our office, and then we're going to refi it. And then if the numbers look good enough at that point in time when we're done, we're thinking about selling it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but if not, then, we'll be okay with the refi and keeping it as our office.
Well, when it goes back to the net worth thing, what about potentially keeping that one for a while? Because that road is insane.
That's the goal. When I seen it, I was like, this is our property. This is our property. We're going to be millionaires.
Yeah.
So, but Amelia was always like, let's sell it. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know.
I know.
I'm like attached to it. But I mean, if the money's right, like absolutely we'll sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll see.
I know you.
We'll see.
There's so many variations, right? Strategy and stuff like that. So, and there's many different ways that you could skin this cat but definitely I'm always tend to lean more towards hold it because you can just make more. I mean, even the one that we're sitting at right now, I mean, we are about 300 meters, maybe 400 meters from Rayford Road. And I was like, I'm holding this thing till I die because it's going to
make
be
you a
worth
lot of money.
stupid money.
Yes.
Yeah. And great tax benefits too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's something we're looking a little bit further into is taking advantage of some of the tax perks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, there's so many pieces. Look, the flipping thing is cool. We've done it, probably not as extensively as you guys because we kind of, as you pointed out earlier, we kind of went heavy into the multifamily, but those are transactional is the best way that somebody explained it to me, and I was like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you may make 20 or 40 or 100 even G's, but then you got to go back to work again versus holding on that thing. If you got it at a great price, if it truly appraises for just a crazy value, I mean, think about that. Like, well, that's your net worth.
Yeah.
It's on paper, but that's your net worth,
I think the best part is that we actually found investors to help us with that because I remember when I got it under contract that she was gone. She's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to, she finds the deals most of the time. And I'm the one out there, like, I actually finding the investor to like invest in us. So in that one, I was like, oh my God, like I found the deal and then I have to go fight because she's gone. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, at the last minute, we like almost lost the deal because one of the sellers, it was, it was
the listing agent.
Yeah,
and
the
there
listing
was,
agent.
there was, I had to sometime, I think I have to get a little bit more rough than Rosa.
Yeah, she does.
Because I have zero tolerance for anything that, if somebody tries to pull the wool over our eyes or take advantage or, and if there's a way that somebody will try to take advantage of Rosa or, if I catch on to it and I didn't like the way the situation was going and they tried to pull the deal from us at the last minute.
Yes.
So that's what she's touching base on. And so I had to tell Rosa, hey, tell them this. And if not, we're taking these steps.
Yeah.
And then I don't think they like that.
Yeah.
So
Because
then
apparently it was the owner had passed away and left it as an inheritance. So one of them didn't want to sell because they felt like the offer was too low. And then the other one was like, I just want to get this over with. So then the attorney was kind of holding it down, the seller's attorney. They were like, well, we can't move forward. And we're like, no, we need to move forward because apparently when the agent listed it, he made a mistake by saying it was on sewer when it wasn't on
septic.
Sewer. So I'm like, no, like that right there is a material fact that should have been disclosed. And now we need more time to be able to like do an inspection on the septic because now we don't know if that septic is going to be, working. So that's where he was like, no, we're just going to terminate. And we're like, no, we're not terminating. So we were like going back and forth. And that's when Amelia was like, no, like at this point, the broker in charge needs to get involved and talk to the sellers because that's a mistake, done by the listing agent. So, but we saved it. Yeah, we saved it.
And now you
was
have it.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
So I kind of interrupted your flow because I was interested about the conversion from residential to commercial. So you talked about the previous one, then you talked about the residential commercial, and you were kind of filling out the rest of kind of what you guys got going on and where you're headed into the buy and hold.
Yeah, so we're actually looking at some properties and some small multifamily properties in Puerto Rico. We have been able to establish some really good people as boots on the ground for us there. We have a very experienced Airbnb and midterm rental host that's really good with, he's done that himself. He also has a contracting company. We have a person that goes out and finds deals for us in the San Juan area, and he's a A1 person. We actually met him at one of the real estate events that we attended in Puerto Rico.
Oh, awesome.
And he is just a A1 person. I mean, the guy, I feel like he had to come with angel wings. You ever meet somebody and they're just that person? And then we have an amazing realtor friend of ours there as well. So we just have a very good team on the ground there. So we're looking at small multis. We do have a property there that we're keeping for midterm rental in Puerto Rico, which is it's in one of the most exclusive areas in Puerto Rico, in the island, because people want to feel safe. So it's in a gated community and one of the most prestigious communities. And the equity on that has just continuously grown. So we're looking good on that property. And here we're also looking for other small multis, and we're actually looking to maybe even open the door for some JVs and some collaboration.
Did I mention to you Jimmy and Stephanie from one of our other groups? Did I mention them to you guys?
I don't know. Were they at the
No.
Okay.
No, they were not.
Okay.
That we were in another mutual mastermind together, and anyway, we became friends because we were in a Facebook group, and he posted who wants to help me buy a hotel in St. Croix. And so I flew down there.
Oh,
this
wow.
was like over 2 years ago. But we were so deep in everything else during that time on the airplane flight back. I had told I said, look, I want to do this with them, but I feel like we're doing a disservice to them because we're so task saturated. How much can I really give of them? And that, oh yeah, by the way, that's 3,000 miles or whatever it is, 2,000 miles away. So the reason why I'm mentioning it is because that's become their niche, and you may have already found them by yourself online. But they have a Facebook group that I forget the actual title, but it's about investing in the Caribbean lifestyle.
Okay.
But anyway, so they do all their stuff in St. Croix and Puerto Rico and the Bahamas, and they're doing Costa Rica right now.
Oh my goch.
That's where she's been wanting to go to Costa Rica. So that's definitely on our travel list.
Yeah, I will remind me to hook you guys up with it because they have a really great offer on a Costa Rica property that if we were positioned slightly differently right now, I would be investing because it's a great resort. They got it great. Jimmy, he is just insanely phenomenal at finding deals and negotiating them. This dude, I'm like, man, dude, you are good at that.
Wow.
Okay, so that's good. Well, I know we're kind of coming down to on time. There's so much more I wanted to talk about, but as per usual, we run out quite quickly. And so I guess I would like to offer you guys or ask you guys one each a question, and then we'll kind of close it out here. So for each of you respectively, if you had one piece of advice that you would offer to an aspiring entrepreneur, or maybe even somebody that's just getting started on, if you could go back and kind of redo things, like what's one piece of advice you could give to somebody to help them either get off the ground or maybe, recalibrate their business? You want to start?
Okay. So, wow, that's a really interesting question, but I can give an analogy.
Do it.
So to me, I think starting a new business as an entrepreneur is comparable to learning how to surf. I surf. And so in order to learn about the business, you have to get in the water. So not just reading, you can watch all the YouTube channels you want on surfing, and you're not going to learn how to surf.
Yes.
So you got to get in the water. And then on top of that, you also have to understand how to weather the various oceanic conditions. So if you're not, acclimated to the different things that the ocean can do for you while you're surfing, then you're going to be in big problems. Another thing is awareness. There are sharks in the ocean. and there's riptides. So you have to be, constantly be aware of your potential, I'd say like maybe competitors or market changes. And then when you can understand those things, practice, then you're going to catch that wave and you're going to take it all the way home with momentum. So those are just some very basic things. You have to get in the game. So get out of YouTube, get out of all these, YouTube lessons and the seminars. Granted, I've been to so many seminars and watched so much, but you got to get in the water.
Yes.
So don't be afraid. There are sharks, but hey, it's not easy being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So be brave.
I like it. I have multiple analogies, but one of the ones that I talk about, I use this more with my kids than other people, but I say you have to jump in the deep end with no floaties.
Yeah.
And I was like, you just have to start swimming.
Ooh, I've been pushing the pole before and I don't know how to swim. So that's kind of scary right there. But
well, how about you though? What would be your one piece?
with me, I will have to say faith, because it's very similar to Amelia's, because I think a lot of times we say we have faith, but then we're afraid. And I'm like, faith is not fear. It's like you have to do it because God is with you and he's going to guide you the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt like I've been guided. Like I've always had like this feeling. Even when I met Amelia, I was like, there's something about her. And I think one day we're going to meet and do big things. So just having that gut feeling that you get, that you're like, this is the right path, and then just going with it. And putting a schedule together and sticking to it. Because a lot of times we're like all over the place and we don't know what to do. But if you sit down and put a schedule, hey, today I'm going to do this. Like I literally had to schedule like a hair appointment, like to wash my hair, because I will be I'm like, okay, I have this appointment, I have that. When am I going to wash my hair? Because I always like to have my hair. I have really curly hair. So I like to like wash it and curl it with like the curling iron. So I'm like, this day I'm going to wash my hair. This day I'm going to do this. So it literally schedule everything. And you might not get to do everything on your list, but you'll get to do most of it because you have it on your schedule. If you don't, you know how sometimes people say, hey, we'll catch up, but it's never on your schedule. It's not going to happen. Once you schedule it, hey, let's catch up. Hey, how about Monday at 3:00? You're good? Okay, we're on a schedule. Now we know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm all about making it happen. So.
I'm smiling because one, I can see Em out of my peripheral nodding her head. I think it's going to snap off.
Yes.
I've definitely gotten significantly better about it, but definitely I was going by the seat of my pants before because I was just like all over the place. And I was like, I wish we had more time, but I try to keep these around a certain time, hoping that, people will be willing to watch through them and stuff. But I want to just kind of close out with offering you guys a chance to kind of, if anybody's listening to it and they want to get a hold of you guys, I'm like, how can they get a hold of you? What are you looking for? Just share that piece with them so that if they're watching, they know how to get in touch with you guys.
Sure. Okay. So we are Equator Fortune Partners.
Say that one more time.
Equator Fortune Partners.
Equator Fortune Partners.
And you can reach any of us by, I think probably text would be the best way at this point in time, or maybe Facebook. We have our individual Facebook pages.
Yes.
Something that we're doing is upping our digital marketing, upping our collaborations with networking. So we have a couple of things that are brewing right now, but I would say Facebook or text.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
awesome.
Equator Fortune Partners, and thank you for having us, Jamie.
Yeah, we will list that. I'll have them list that inside the show notes on the bottom of the page and stuff. So
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for coming over and spending this time out of your day and sharing your story. As I continuously say, my hope is just that your guys' story resonates with somebody and inspires them, educates them, or they connect.
Absolutely.
Either way,
Awesome.
it would be great. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.